because when you're battered every day, when you're challenged every day, every quarter of your life, you need the inspiration and the soul rebuilding and repairing. And that's what our culture and our movement provides to us. There isn't a movement, there isn't a culture, there isn't a nationality that does not have that tradition. And the oppressed nationalities in particular cling onto that tradition because it's how we made it through all of the treacherous things that we had to go through and survive. Sitting here among us are those who are the survivors, both those who are from oppressed nationalities as well as those of us who have been on the battlefield working in unions trying to organize in the best traditions of the unions and the best traditions of workers. So what's most important is what you're doing today and what you did last night, to try to pull together and gather together those warriors and those fighters that must lead the repairing and the rebuilding of our movements wherever we are. So I am grateful to be amongst you, because I am always grateful to be amongst warriors. I'm always grateful to be among people who do not get pessimistic, but are always trying to be problem solvers no matter what they face every day. We don't have the luxury, the time, nor can we claim to be revolutionaries or warriors if we're sitting down in the midst of our tears. The old adage was, don't mourn, organize. And that was when somebody was being hung because they fought for the 8-hour day. The slaves, people who were enslaved, who marched, walked, secreted, and fought, and waged slave rebellions for freedom, those are the people on whose shoulders we stand. We cannot betray them by not building the kind of movement to continue the struggle till we get to the final place that we need to be, and that's a society that honors, respects, nourishes, and involves people in decision making and is not run by the imperialists. We have that challenge. It's not an unrealistic challenge. It's a challenge that we must take on. We don't have a choice at all but to take that challenge. And the importance of us coming together, me coming across the border here from the belly of the beast, the one who's trying to steal jobs, not me, from New York, is to also say that there are warriors in every country, in every region, and every community. And to build a movement, one of the key things that I've learned over the years is that we don't need somebody to propel into somebody's community or somebody's workplace to organize for them and tell them how to organize. What we need is to honor and respect those indigenous organizers in those communities, among those nationalities, and in those workplaces. Because every movement produces its warriors. And what we need to do is to gather those warriors whenever and as often as we can to exchange our experiences and to highlight our victories and to talk about our defeats in the framework of how do we not let that happen again. And how do we organize better? And how do we defeat the imperialists better? And how do we build a bigger and bigger and bigger, stronger movement? So today is very important. And I was listening last night, and one of the themes that seemed to keep on manifesting itself, and unlike me, I'm not that polite. The sisters and brothers who spoke last night did not really hammer home what that big elephant is that's sitting in the room. They spoke about it, they said it, and they all said it. One of the reasons why I feel that we're in the place where we are in terms of not having the kind of movement is because there have been decades after decades of betrayal of ourselves. And one of those betrayals was to be convinced that it is okay for us to let any sector of the working class be denigrated. That we could allow any sector of the working class to have less than us. That we could let any sector of the working class be murdered, be butchered, be displaced, be given slave wages or no wages at all, to be harmed at the workplace, to be shuffled and displaced from their homes, that it's okay as long as it ain't happening to me. That it's okay because I still got my good union job. I still got my benefits. I still got my home. I still got my 1 or 2 cars. My children are still going to college. So it's them over there. It must be their problem. They are the others. And I don't have to unite with them. I don't even have to contend with them. I don't have to see them. And I definitely don't have to organize with them. That's what they were saying. And we don't want you to organize with us from a charity point of view. We want you to organize with us as side-by-side revolutionaries, warriors, sisters and brothers in the movement. Not as second-class citizens, people that you feel sorry for. Not as people that you think you are smarter than, that you are more abreast of what needs to be done and you need to come and tell us what to be done. No, we want you to stand side by side, arm by arm, and understand that by doing that, we are creating the greatest threat against the imperialists. That's what they were saying, but they didn't hit it home because they were being polite. White skin privilege needs to be defeated. You cannot be free in your white skin if we are enslaved in our brown, our yellow, our red skins. It ain't happening. And now it's coming to bite you in the ass because you took that stand, because you closed your eyes. And now, we used to always say in the black community, when white folks sneeze, we get pneumonia. But you're doing a lot more than sneezing. You're beginning to experience the kind of conditions that we've been living under for a long time. Where we can be cast out of a job without not even thinking about it. Where we can lose our homes without even thinking about it. Where our kids won't go to school because they can't afford it, the schools are closing. That you're going to have to give up that car, and in the United States, I know it's a little bit different here, people have to give up their American dream, and that's their homes. And that you are being villainized. It was okay to let people of color be villainized. But now you're being villainized. You're being criminalized. And this is not the first time it's happened in the history of the movement. So the question is that one of the main things that we have to do is not give verbiage, not have it just in slogans and newspapers and on our placards, that we're really building an anti-racist, anti-sexist, working class movement led by working people. It must be in our practice. Every single day. It must be in our practice in terms of how we respect those people that are lowest and deepest in terms of the working class, the ones who get the lowest wages, who work in the most dangerous jobs. They have to be leaders of their own struggle, and you listen to the people here, they're quite capable, if you had any illusions that they're not, to lead their own struggle. So what is the struggle for those who are not from oppressed nations? What should the struggle and the role be of those who are still fortunate enough to be in unionized jobs and still able to organize? It is to reach across your comfort zone. It is not, as the sisters and brothers said, you come with your story of pain and somebody says, well, how much money can I throw at it? That's what they said. They said they didn't want that. Not that they didn't want the money, but from comrades, they want something much more. Going back to the 60s, one of the distinguishing factors was that there was a revolutionary fever across the world. And then when revolutionaries came together, whatever language they spoke, wherever they lived, whatever they're confronting in their movement, they stood shoulder to shoulder with you because your struggle was their struggle. They didn't see it as separate. They didn't see it as being clients of the United States workers and coming here and begging with their hats in their hands. They saw themselves as matching side by side with the warriors that were in the United States. They understood, and that was a piece that we had to force home in the Montreal, that those of us who were there from the United States, from the belly of the beast, we weren't the beast. And if you have any illusions that there isn't and anti-imperialist movement in the United States, that is something you need to quickly get rid of, because there always has been a movement of that nature. And sometimes it's going down, and sometimes it's rising up. I'm of the view that now, across the world, that the rising up is bubbling up, and we have to take advantage of this moment in time. It is no error, or no mistake, or no magic that the Guadeloupe and Martinique sisters and brothers could go on general strike. And what were the two? They didn't just raise up economic issues. They raised up the issue of the cloak of colonialism and racism, as well as the issues of pay, as well as the issue of social justice and benefits and things to help them survive. How did they do that? It was led by organized labor. But it was throughout the whole country, and they could even influence Martinique to join hands with them against the French, who were still their colonizers. How did they do that? Those are questions that we need to examine. We need to look at what's happening in Egypt. We need to look at what's happening in Tunisia. We need to look at what's happening in Palestine. We need to look at what's happening in our own countries and see and find all those embers and help them grow into a great flame. That means that is the form of the movement. So we have to recognize, because it inspires you. If you listen to the bullshit that the imperialists tell you every day, you will be sitting in a well of tears. I never listen to them other than to think of how I can counter their asses and to think about what we need to do, and that's another piece of it. How do we, people were talking about taking things to the working class. What we need not to do is to take and describe their pain. They already know that. They don't need you to come and tell them how painful it is to be a part sector of the working class. What they need is for us to all come together like you're doing this weekend and collaborating and using our best practices. What has worked when you were confronted with this? Can we apply it here? What is our history of resistance? That's what the class has been blotted out, because they don't want you to know that you have resisted. They don't want you to know that you have been victorious. They want you to take for granted that anything that you have wrenched from this wretched beast, you wrenched from their hands because you were organized and courageous and brave, and you fought for it, and you got it. So we tell people, you didn't get that unemployment check because some benevolent imperialists said, oh, let me see, there's all these people that are unemployed in the 30s, maybe we can give them unemployment. No, their asses were on the line. They knew that if the movement kept building the way it was all across the country, it was going to take the shit over, take the country over, take the government over, and build a worker society. And they said, it is cheaper to make a concession and give them unemployment, give them Social Security, but we won that. That was a victory. And all the things that you have here in this country and in Ontario, you won those things. But what happens is that there is amnesia, purposeful amnesia on the part of the class, because we have misleaders leading the class. We have people who have accepted the stale crumbs, not from the imperialist table, but from the floor, and accepted them in exchange from blotting out any memory, any class memory of resistance. That is also there, and accepting those crumbs to make sure that if there are any embers, that they squash them, by directing you into madness that takes you down a path to Never Never Land. We don't want to be the Never Never Land. We want to be in the land of the free, those who are brave, and those who can control their own destiny. We want to be in a working class society. But they do everything to divide the virtue. Even from the standpoint, one of the lessons that I have learned from the civil rights movement in the United States, in comparison to the working class organized labor sector, they had nothing. They didn't have the money. They always had some form of organization, otherwise some of us who have a darker skin wouldn't be standing here. They always had some form of organization, both military and otherwise. But they didn't have money. They were despised by the whole country. They didn't have any control over any media outlets. But what they did have, and what they did understand, is that the only way they won anything was militant disruption of the status quo. That's what the slave rebellions were. Well, you think I'm gonna still be a slave? I'm leaving, and I'm taking a bunch of folks with me. And if you stand in my way, the consequences are yours. I'm gonna organize an underground railroad. I'm gonna organize slave rebellions. And in the civil rights movement, what they were saying is that I'll close down your town. I will close down your bus system. I will close down your stores. I will close down your schools. So they didn't go and organize a rally when the oppressors weren't around. They didn't organize a rally at 5 o'clock when everybody has gone home or the building is empty. They didn't organize a rally on the weekend when ain't no workers outside, much less they're not there. They're off somewhere in one of their third or fourth homes. They organized things very consciously that was going to disrupt it. We're not talking about madness. We're talking about some things that probably seem very simple and tame to us today, but people would have been murdered and were murdered. They were beaten, their jobs were taken from them, and their homes. If I went and walked up the steps during that time to the county seat to register to vote, the county office would close. Just me by myself. But if I organize, like, and this is the other thing too in terms of our mythology, letting other people rewrite our history and take the heart of the revolutionary aspects of it out,